In the quiet moments of my practice, when the door closes and someone begins to speak their truth, I'm reminded that healing never starts with fireworks. It begins with silence, with presence, and with the courage to whisper, "I'm not okay." I've spent over 2 decades as a clinical psychologist, walking with individuals who have known sorrow in its many shades. Some come in barely able to describe their pain, others with tears they've long held back. Depression doesn't look the same in every person, but it often speaks in a common language: fatigue, disconnection, numbness, hopelessness. So if you're reading this and find yourself nodding or feeling the weight of recognition in your chest, know this: you are not alone. And more importantly, this chapter of your life is not the full story. Depression is not a character flaw. It is not laziness, weakness, or lack of will. It is an illness. And like any illness, it needs care, not judgment. It requires attention, gentleness, and a willingness to start again and again. Over the years, I've learned that while medication and therapy are often essential and effective, they are only parts of a wider ecosystem of healing. The daily habits we cultivate, the small, often overlooked rituals of living, can shape the terrain of our recovery. It's easy to underestimate the power of small things: a glass of water, a made bed, a step outside. But these are not meaningless motions. They are quiet declarations. I am still here. I am trying. I am not giving up. You won't always feel motivated. Depression makes even the simplest acts feel monumental. That's okay. Healing doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on showing up, even if just a little. This journey we're about to walk through together isn't a blueprint or a checklist. It's a conversation, a collection of gentle invitations, ways you can begin to reconnect with yourself, moment by moment, breath by breath. You are not broken. You are hurting. There's a difference. And in that space between the two is the possibility of hope, of change, of something softer than survival, something like life. Let's begin, not with pressure, but with compassion. Not with urgency, but with presence. Not with perfection, but with grace. I often tell my patients that how you start your day matters more than you think. Not because it will magically erase your pain, but because it creates a rhythm, a sense of gentle structure that depression so often steals. When you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you do? For many, it's reaching for the phone, scrolling through a world that feels distant and overwhelming. But what if, instead, you created a small sequence of acts that felt grounding? Something that told your body and mind, I am here, and I am beginning again. It can be as simple as this: wake up at the same time each day. Sit on the edge of your bed and take 3 slow breaths. Stretch your arms overhead. Open a window to let the morning air touch your skin. Make your bed, even if messily. Drink a glass of water. That's it. That's your routine. You don't need to design a perfect, Instagram-worthy morning. You need moments of intention. Depression often brings chaos, unpredictable emotions, foggy thoughts, exhaustion. A morning ritual becomes an anchor, a touchstone, a whisper of order amid the noise. And as you repeat these actions, something powerful happens. Your brain begins to associate waking up with motion, care, and rhythm. Over time, the routine becomes not just a set of tasks, but a sacred ritual, a way of saying, I matter. This day matters. Even if it's hard. I've seen patients start with just one thing, like making their bed, and slowly build a routine that gives their mornings meaning again. There's dignity in this. There's strength. And when depression tries to convince you that everything is meaningless, these small rituals push back. They remind you, I'm still trying. I'm still here. So as we continue this journey, remember, your morning doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. One of the most overlooked, yet most powerful, habits in managing depression is the way we feed ourselves, not just what we eat, but how we relate to nourishment itself. I've seen how depression robs people of their appetite or makes them numb to their hunger. It can whisper lies that you're not worth the effort of a proper meal. It can pull you into patterns of skipping food all day and then binging at night. It can make grocery stores feel overwhelming and cooking seem like climbing a mountain. But here's a truth I've witnessed over and over again. When someone begins to reclaim their relationship with food, even gently, it becomes a message to their mind and body that they matter, that they are worth feeding, worth caring for. You don't need to overhaul your diet overnight. In fact, I'd caution against drastic changes. What you need is consistency, balance, and permission to start small. Ask yourself, can I eat one nutritious meal today? Can I drink one more glass of water? Can I take 5 extra minutes to prepare something instead of defaulting to what's easiest? These are not just acts of nutrition. They are acts of self-respect. Cooking a simple breakfast, making a sandwich with care, sitting down, even if only for 10 minutes, to eat without distraction. These moments matter. In my practice, I've seen patients transform their mornings simply by adding oatmeal with fruit. I've seen how cutting back on caffeine, just a little, helps someone feel less anxious and jittery. I've seen what happens when a person who hasn't eaten regularly begins to do so. Their thoughts grow clearer, their emotions less jagged, their energy more stable. Food is not a cure for depression, but it is fuel for the journey. And choosing to nourish yourself, even when you don't feel like it, becomes a radical act of healing. So I invite you, honor your hunger. Listen to your body. Feed yourself not just for survival, but as an expression of hope. You are worth the effort it takes to care. When we think of exercise, we often think of gyms, sweat, and discipline. But when I speak to patients about movement, I speak from a different place, not of punishment or performance, but of healing. Depression disconnects us from our bodies. It makes us feel heavy, slow, sometimes invisible. And so the goal of movement is not to change your appearance or burn calories. It's to remind your nervous system that you're still alive, that your body, even in pain, can still move toward life. Start with the gentlest invitation. Can you stretch for 2 minutes? Can you walk around the block? Can you sway slowly to a song that touches you? These don't need to be grand efforts. What matters most is consistency and intention. One of my patients once told me, I started dancing in my kitchen, just 5 minutes a day. It was the first time in years I remembered what joy felt like. Joy and depression may seem incompatible, but even in the darkness, your body remembers joy. Movement gives it a voice. Try not to think of movement as exercise. Think of it as a conversation with your body. Some days, it may whisper that it's tired, and all it wants is a gentle stretch in bed. Other days, it might ask for a long walk, swim, or a bike ride. Listen and respond with kindness. There's a physiological truth to this, too. Movement increases blood flow, reduces cortisol, boosts serotonin and endorphins. Even short bursts of activity can shift your internal weather. I've seen people use movement as a bridge, from stuckness to momentum, from numbness to feeling, from despair to a glimpse of vitality. So begin not with rules, but with curiosity. Ask your body, what do you need today? How can I support you with kindness? And remember, you don't need motivation to move. You just need a beginning. One small act that says, I choose life today. Even if it's hard, even if it's quiet, even if it's slow. This, too, is part of healing. In all my years as a psychologist, one theme comes up time and time again with those navigating depression: disrupted sleep. It's as if the night itself becomes an enemy too long, too quiet, too full of thought. And yet, restorative sleep is one of the most powerful, natural tools we have for healing. When depression takes hold, sleep can be erratic. Some people find themselves lying awake for hours, while others sleep through entire afternoons and still feel exhausted. But the goal is not just to get more sleep, it's to restore a rhythm that your body can rely on, night after night. I often tell my patients, your brain is like a garden. Sleep is the rain. Without it, everything withers, even the parts you've worked hard to nourish. So let's talk about building a sleep practice, not a rigid schedule, but a nightly ritual that tells your body, it's safe now to rest. Start by choosing a consistent bedtime and wake-up time, even on weekends. This trains your circadian rhythm, your body's natural clock. Then build a gentle wind-down routine. Lower the lights an hour before bed. Turn off screens, yes, even your phone. Read a book, take a warm shower, or listen to calming music. Rituals like these become cues to your nervous system. We are preparing for rest. Avoid caffeine after early afternoon. Limit alcohol. And if your mind is racing when you lie down, try writing your thoughts in a journal before bed. Often, our brains hold on to things because we haven't given them a safe place to go. A journal can be that place. One patient of mine, a young teacher, struggled with insomnia for years. We began with the smallest change, a nightly cup of chamomile tea and 15 minutes of soft music. Within weeks, her body began to anticipate this rhythm. Her sleep didn't become perfect, but it became gentler. And that gentleness gave her the strength to face the day. Sleep is not a luxury, it is medicine. It's how the brain repairs, how emotions are processed, how clarity is restored. And even when depression makes rest feel impossible, the act of honoring sleep is a radical form of care. So ask yourself tonight, what helps me feel safe enough to rest? And how can I offer that to myself, again and again, like a lullaby? Because you deserve rest. You deserve restoration. And your healing begins, in part, under the quiet grace of night. In today's world, the screen has become our constant companion. For many of my patients, their phones are the first thing they see in the morning and the last thing they hold at night. But when we're talking about depression, our relationship with technology deserves a closer, more honest look. Digital devices are tools, but when left unchecked, they often become noise. Endless scrolling, late-night news cycles, the curated highlight reels of other people's lives. All these inputs flood our minds and, in doing so, dull our inner voice. The result? Heightened anxiety, increased comparison, and a deeper sense of disconnection from ourselves. This isn't about demonizing technology. Rather, it's about reclaiming your attention. Depression already narrows the mind's ability to focus and process. Digital overload only compounds the fog. I often ask patients, when was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for a device? Not out of boredom, but simply to be? Try setting small, compassionate boundaries. Begin with one screen-free hour each morning or evening. Replace that time with something quieter, journaling, reading, sitting by a window, even doing nothing. You're not trying to fill the space, you're learning to be in it. Consider using grayscale mode on your phone, turning off non-essential notifications, or setting app time limits. These small actions send a clear message to your mind. You are allowed peace. You are allowed stillness. One of my clients, a college student, struggled with deep anxiety linked to social media. We began with a 2-day break. She was shocked at the silence that followed, but within that silence, she rediscovered her breath, her thoughts, her sense of presence. I didn't know how loud it all was until it stopped, she said. In our tech-heavy age, the radical act isn't just unplugging. It's remembering who we are without constant input. Depression can make us feel like we've lost ourselves. But when you turn down the external volume, you start to hear the faint hum of your own being again. So today, ask yourself, what kind of relationship do I want with my screen? Am I using it to connect or to escape? Am I allowing it to serve me, or am I serving it? You deserve moments of uninterrupted presence. You deserve to reclaim your attention, not in judgment, but in quiet, loving return to yourself. There's something ancient and almost sacred about stepping outside and feeling the earth beneath your feet. I've seen time and again how nature, simple, unassuming nature, can soften the edges of depression and return us to a sense of belonging. When I suggest this to patients, I often get a quiet shrug or a polite nod. It sounds too simple. But here's the truth. Depression disconnects us from life. It convinces us that we are separate, alone, and numb. Nature, on the other hand, reminds us that we are part of something larger, something still breathing, still beautiful. A walk in the park, the sound of birds at dawn, the way sunlight filters through leaves, these are not small things. They are grounding anchors. They pull us out of our heads and into the world. They remind us that life is still moving, even when we feel stuck. I once worked with a man in his late 40s who felt completely lost after a painful divorce. Nothing seemed to lift his spirits. One day, almost by accident, he wandered into a nearby botanical garden. He began returning weekly, then daily. Eventually, he started volunteering there. I didn't talk much, he said, but I touched the soil. I watched things grow. It helped me believe that I could grow again, too. You don't have to live near a forest to feel this healing. A plant on your windowsill. A moment spent watching the clouds. Even 5 minutes standing barefoot on the grass can shift something inside you. And perhaps most importantly, nature is quiet. It doesn't demand or expect. It just offers. Its presence says, here you are, still breathing, still part of it all. So the next time your world feels heavy, step outside. Let the air touch your skin. Let your feet find the ground. Listen, look, feel, because you are not apart from life. You are of it. And in remembering that, you may just begin to find your way back to yourself. When we talk about habits to support mental health, food often becomes a battleground, counting calories, debating diets, feeling guilt. But as a psychologist, I encourage patients to approach eating through a different lens: nourishment, not punishment; connection, not control. Depression can distort the way we relate to food. Some lose their appetite entirely. Others turn to it for comfort in ways that leave them feeling emptier than before. What's most often missing is not nutrients, it's kindness, intention, awareness. I ask my patients, what would it look like to eat with presence? Not perfection, presence. To treat meals not as tasks or escapes, but as moments to reconnect with the body that's trying so hard to carry you through this life. Begin by noticing your habits. Do you skip meals? Eat in front of screens? Forget what you just consumed? Try setting aside one meal a day, just one, to eat without distraction. Taste your food. Chew slowly. Give thanks, silently or aloud. This simple act of mindful eating sends a powerful message to your nervous system. I am here. I am safe. I am tending to myself. This isn't about superfoods or strict rules. It's about small choices that affirm your worth. A glass of water in the morning. A warm bowl of soup when you feel cold inside. A shared dinner, if possible, to soften isolation. These are all forms of care. One patient, a young woman battling both depression and disordered eating, started keeping a gratitude plate. Not a journal, but a real plate she filled once a day with foods that made her feel truly cared for. It could be a piece of fruit, a childhood favorite, or something she cooked herself. That ritual became her daily reminder that she was worth feeding, worth nurturing. Your body, tired as it may be, is not your enemy. It is your partner in healing. It speaks through hunger, fatigue, cravings, and energy. When you listen, not with shame, but with compassion, you begin to build trust again. So ask yourself today, what does my body truly need? Not what I should eat, but what would feel nourishing right now. Let food be one of the ways you say to yourself, I want you to feel better. I believe you can. Because healing is not just mental. It's physical. It's emotional. It's a meal prepared in love, eaten in peace, received with grace. When we talk about habits to support mental health, food often becomes a battleground, counting calories, debating diets, feeling guilt. But as a psychologist, I encourage patients to approach eating through a different lens: nourishment, not punishment; connection, not control. Depression can distort the way we relate to food. Some lose their appetite entirely. Others turn to it for comfort in ways that leave them feeling emptier than before. What's most often missing is not nutrients, it's kindness, intention, awareness. I ask my patients, what would it look like to eat with presence? Not perfection, presence. To treat meals not as tasks or escapes, but as moments to reconnect with the body that's trying so hard to carry you through this life. Begin by noticing your habits. Do you skip meals? Eat in front of screens? Forget what you just consumed? Try setting aside one meal a day, just one, to eat without distraction. Taste your food. Chew slowly. Give thanks, silently or aloud. This simple act of mindful eating sends a powerful message to your nervous system. I am here. I am safe. I am tending to myself. This isn't about superfoods or strict rules. It's about small choices that affirm your worth. A glass of water in the morning. A warm bowl of soup when you feel cold inside. A shared dinner, if possible, to soften isolation. These are all forms of care. One patient, a young woman battling both depression and disordered eating, started keeping a gratitude plate. Not a journal, but a real plate she filled once a day with foods that made her feel truly cared for. It could be a piece of fruit, a childhood favorite, or something she cooked herself. That ritual became her daily reminder that she was worth feeding, worth nurturing. Your body, tired as it may be, is not your enemy. It is your partner in healing. It speaks through hunger, fatigue, cravings, and energy. When you listen, not with shame, but with compassion, you begin to build trust again. So ask yourself today, what does my body truly need? Not what I should eat, but what would feel nourishing right now. Let food be one of the ways you say to yourself, I want you to feel better. I believe you can. Because healing is not just mental. It's physical. It's emotional. It's a meal prepared in love, eaten in peace, received with grace. In the hustle of life, we're often conditioned to say yes to everything: responsibilities, social invitations, obligations. But when you're living with depression, saying yes to everything can leave you depleted, scattered, and further disconnected from yourself. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is say no. Saying no is an act of self-preservation, not selfishness. It is a way to honor your limits and protect your energy. Depression often convinces us that we are not enough, that we must constantly prove our worth. But the truth is, you don't have to say yes to everything to prove your value. You already matter, just as you are. I often talk with patients about the power of boundaries. A boundary is not a wall to keep people out, but a loving line that says, I need this space to care for myself. Setting boundaries, including saying no, is not about rejecting others. It's about protecting your own mental health. Start small. Begin by identifying one or two things that feel draining or overwhelming. Can you let go of one of those responsibilities? Can you decline one social event that feels like too much? Saying no might make you uncomfortable at first, but it is a step toward reclaiming your autonomy and self-worth. One of my patients, a single mother juggling work and family life, struggled with saying no. She felt guilty when she couldn't meet everyone's expectations. Together, we worked on her saying no to one request each week, whether it was a work task or a social commitment. Over time, she began to feel more centered, more in control. She said, "It's not that I don't care. It's that I need to care for myself first." Saying no is not about cutting yourself off from others. It's about acknowledging that your mental health matters. It's about realizing that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You are enough, exactly as you are. So ask yourself today, what am I holding on to that's no longer serving me? What would it feel like to say no to protect my peace? You are worthy of space. You are worthy of rest. And in saying no, you're saying yes to your own well-being. In the quiet moments of depression, when everything feels stagnant, creativity often feels like an unreachable luxury. Yet, creativity is one of the most potent forms of self-expression, and it holds within it the ability to heal, to release, and to transform. As a psychologist, I've witnessed the way creative outlets, whether they involve writing, painting, music, or even cooking, can help people reconnect to parts of themselves they thought were lost. The beauty of creativity is that it doesn't require perfection. It simply asks for presence. Depression can lead us to believe that we're not good enough, that we have nothing to offer. But creativity doesn't judge. A sketch on a napkin, a few lines of poetry, or even the simple act of rearranging furniture. These acts remind us that we are still capable of creating, still capable of beauty, even in dark times. I often encourage my patients to find a small, simple creative outlet. It doesn't need to be grand or impressive. What matters is that you express yourself in a way that feels safe and genuine. For one patient, it was knitting. For another, it was gardening. A writer I worked with began filling notebooks with short, fragmented thoughts. None of it had to make sense, but it all helped her get closer to understanding what she was feeling. Creativity allows us to express emotions that words cannot. It offers a language beyond the limitations of speech, connecting us to something deep within. Sometimes, we don't have the words to describe what's happening inside, but a drawing, a melody, or even a dance can say everything that our heart has been trying to communicate. Think about what small creative act could be the most healing for you. Maybe it's doodling, maybe it's journaling, or maybe it's making a playlist of songs that speak to your heart. The key is to let go of the need for perfection and allow your creativity to be a form of emotional release. One woman I worked with started to write letters to herself. At first, they were short, filled with frustration, and seemed like incoherent rants. Over time, though, these letters evolved into something beautiful. They became her voice of compassion, her voice of encouragement, and eventually, her voice of hope. Creative expression is a mirror, reflecting back parts of us that we may not have been able to see otherwise. And in that reflection, there's a chance for healing. So I ask you, what form of creativity can you invite into your life today? How can you express yourself without judgment, without expectation? You don't need to create a masterpiece. You just need to create. Depression often thrives in isolation, in the spaces we create when we withdraw from others. Yet, one of the most powerful antidotes to this feeling of being alone is community. Even if that community is small, even if it's just one or two people who truly see you, it can make all the difference. One of the most important things I remind my patients is that support does not always look like grand gestures or constant company. Sometimes, it's just the quiet presence of someone who listens, someone who doesn't try to fix, but simply understands. If you're navigating depression, the thought of seeking support may feel daunting. It can feel vulnerable or even uncomfortable, especially when you may be afraid of burdening others. But the truth is, reaching out is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of strength. It takes courage to let others in when you feel broken, and it takes trust to believe that others can carry some of that weight with you. So, I often encourage my patients to think about their immediate circle. Who are the people who make them feel seen? Who are the ones who, even in their own pain, can offer kindness and empathy? These may not be many people, and that's okay. The key is quality, not quantity. For some, it's a close friend, a partner, a sibling, or even a support group of people who understand what it means to struggle with mental health. The support you need is not necessarily someone who will give you advice or try to fix things. It's someone who simply gives you the space to feel what you're feeling and who listens with an open heart. One woman I worked with began reaching out to a longtime friend, someone she hadn't spoken to in months, because she knew that this friend would listen without judgment. She didn't expect solutions, just a compassionate ear. That simple act of reconnecting made a world of difference in her healing process. And if you're not sure who to reach out to, consider joining a support group or an online community where people share similar experiences. Sometimes, just knowing that others understand what you're going through can make a huge impact. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. Reaching out is a sign of strength, not weakness. Community is a powerful part of healing. So today, think about your circle. Who are the people who make you feel safe and supported? Who can you reach out to, even if it's just for a small conversation or a listening ear? You don't have to be alone, and you don't have to carry it all by yourself. When you're living with depression, it's easy to lose sight of the small victories. The day-to-day moments of progress can feel insignificant in the shadow of everything that feels wrong. But the truth is, these small wins matter. They are the stepping stones to larger healing, the breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself. One of the most profound lessons I've learned as a psychologist is the power of acknowledgement. Depression often tells us that we're not doing enough, that we're falling short. But when we take a moment to recognize even the smallest effort, it shifts something within us. It reminds us that we are trying. It reminds us that, despite the heaviness, we are moving forward. I often encourage my patients to keep a small wins journal. Each day, write down one thing you did, no matter how small. Maybe you got out of bed, made a cup of tea, responded to a text message. Maybe you took a shower, went for a walk, or even just allowed yourself to rest. These may seem trivial, but in the context of depression, they are monumental. One patient of mine, a woman who had struggled for years with severe depression, told me that her small win for the day was simply brushing her teeth. It had been weeks since she had felt up to it, but that one act of self-care, though small, was a significant victory. I felt like I'd won something, she said. Like I'd done something for me. Recognizing small wins shifts the narrative. It teaches your brain that you are capable, that you are worthy of acknowledgement. Over time, this simple practice can begin to build a sense of momentum, an awareness that you are not stagnant. You are evolving, even when it feels slow. Another patient, a young man grappling with job loss and loneliness, began writing down his small wins every evening. One day, it was making a healthy meal for himself. Another day, it was taking a walk around the block. By the end of the week, he had several small victories written down, and each one made him feel a little more connected to his own life, a little more hopeful. These small wins are the breadcrumbs that lead us forward. They are the quiet evidence that healing is taking place, even when we don't see it immediately. And when you celebrate these victories, you give yourself the permission to move through depression with kindness, gentleness, and patience. So today, ask yourself, what is one small win I can celebrate today? What is one thing I can acknowledge, even if it feels small, as a victory in my healing journey? Because even the smallest win is a step in the right direction, and you deserve to celebrate every single one. When depression takes hold, the world often feels like an unpredictable storm. Emotions fluctuate, energy levels drop, and the sense of control slips through your fingers. It's during these times that one of the most healing tools can be the simple act of creating structure, a routine, a rhythm to your day. I know that at first, the idea of structuring your life when you feel overwhelmed can feel like an impossible task. After all, depression makes even the smallest tasks seem daunting. But here's the truth. Structure doesn't have to be rigid or overwhelming. It can be a gentle framework that helps guide you through the day, bringing stability to moments that otherwise feel chaotic. Think of it as a safety net. It's not about perfection, but about creating a sense of predictability, something your brain can rely on, even when other things feel uncertain. I often suggest to my patients that they start with simple routines. It could be as small as waking up at the same time each day or having a set time for meals. Maybe it's setting aside time each morning to stretch or walk, or perhaps it's a specific hour in the evening for unwinding before bed. One patient, a woman who had struggled for years with depression, found it incredibly difficult to leave her bed in the mornings. We started by setting a routine where she would spend just 5 minutes sitting up in bed, drinking a glass of water, and taking deep breaths. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible change. But over time, this small act of structure began to anchor her, providing a sense of order in her day. Soon, she was adding more to her routine: a shower, a cup of coffee, a short walk. Structure doesn't mean rigidity, it means self-care. It's a way of telling yourself, I am worthy of this. I am capable of this. For someone else, a patient who had struggled with work-related stress and exhaustion, we worked together to establish work hours and non-negotiable breaks. We included time for lunch and short walks outside. Slowly but surely, these boundaries created a rhythm that helped reduce the overwhelming nature of her workload and gave her space to breathe. When you create a routine, you're not trying to force yourself into something you're not. Instead, you're giving yourself a framework that allows you to show up for yourself, even on the tough days. And this is a gentle, loving act that can help you feel more in control, even when depression is making things feel uncertain. So today, think about one small routine you can add to your day. Something simple, like a set time to eat or a small ritual to wind down at night. How can you begin to weave a little structure into your day in a way that feels nourishing, not demanding? Because even a small routine can be a powerful tool in regaining your sense of control, and you are worthy of that sense of stability. When it comes to depression, the act of creating can often feel out of reach. The weight of the emotions and the heaviness of the mind can make even the simplest tasks seem impossible. But creative expression, in any form, can be an incredibly healing tool, even when it feels like the last thing you want to do. I've seen time and again that depression tends to limit our ability to express ourselves fully. It convinces us that our thoughts and feelings are too chaotic or too unimportant to be shared. But creative outlets, whether it's painting, writing, music, or any other form of creation, allow us to put something outside of ourselves. It helps us externalize what's internal and, in doing so, create space to process and heal. The beauty of creative expression is that there's no right way to do it. You don't need to be an artist or have any special skills. You simply need to show up with an open heart and a willingness to explore. Creativity doesn't need to be polished or perfect. It just needs to be an honest reflection of where you are. One patient, a young man dealing with profound sadness after a personal loss, started writing poetry as a way to process his emotions. He would write for 5 or 10 minutes each evening, not worrying about structure or grammar. He simply allowed his feelings to flow. Over time, this practice of unfiltered expression became a form of release for him. It didn't fix the sadness, but it allowed him to move through it without feeling overwhelmed. Another woman I worked with found solace in painting. She had never been particularly artistic, but after a few sessions, she started exploring colors and shapes that seemed to mirror her emotions. The act of putting paint on a canvas became a way for her to release what words couldn't. It's like I'm giving my pain a voice, she said. Creative expression doesn't require you to be good at it. It only requires you to be honest with yourself. It's a way of channeling your pain into something tangible, something that you can look at and say, I made this. This is a part of me. And, in doing so, you create space to heal. So today, consider, what creative outlet could you explore, even if it's just for 5 minutes? What could you create that would give your emotions a voice, even if only for a moment? Because your emotions deserve to be expressed, and creative expression is one way to make that possible. One of the most challenging aspects of depression is the feeling of isolation. It's as if a heavy fog descends, separating you from the people and experiences that once brought you joy. And yet, one of the most vital steps toward healing is reconnecting with your support system, those friends, family, or communities that offer you love, compassion, and understanding. As a psychologist, I have seen countless patients who felt too ashamed or too exhausted to reach out to others. I don't want to burden anyone, they say. No one understands. These feelings are valid, but I often remind them that connection is not a burden, it's a lifeline. We are social creatures, designed for connection. And during times of struggle, it's okay to lean on others. I encourage my patients to reach out in whatever way feels manageable. It could be a simple text message to check in with a friend or a phone call to a family member. Perhaps it's attending a support group where others understand what you're going through. The act of sharing your experience, even in small ways, can be a powerful reminder that you are not alone in your journey. One patient, a woman who had withdrawn from her social circles for months, took a courageous step one day by calling a close friend. She was afraid of being judged or of feeling like a burden, but to her surprise, her friend was incredibly supportive and understanding. I didn't realize how much I needed that, she said. Just hearing her voice made me feel less alone. Another patient of mine, a young man who struggled with loneliness after moving to a new city, began attending a weekly group therapy session. Initially, he was hesitant and unsure of what to expect, but over time, he formed deep connections with others who understood his struggles. I felt like I could finally breathe, he told me, like I could talk openly and not be judged. When it comes to support, it's not about having all the answers or fixing each other's problems. Sometimes, simply having someone listen, without judgment, without advice, can be healing in and of itself. The power of human connection lies in its ability to validate our experiences, to remind us that we are worthy of love and care, even in our darkest moments. If you're finding it difficult to reach out, start small. Choose one person, a friend, family member, or even a therapist, and share a piece of your experience. You don't have to say everything at once. Just begin by allowing yourself to be seen. So today, ask yourself, who in my life can I reach out to? Who can I lean on for support, even if just for a brief conversation? Because you are not meant to navigate this journey alone. Connection, no matter how small, is an essential part of the healing process. And you deserve to feel supported, loved, and understood. When we talk about depression, the focus is often on the mind, thought patterns, emotions, behaviors. But one element that's often overlooked is the role of nutrition in mental health. What we put into our bodies has a profound impact on how we feel, both physically and emotionally. The connection between the gut and the brain is more intricate than many realize. In fact, the gut is often referred to as the second brain due to the large number of neurons it contains and the chemicals it produces, which can influence mood and overall mental well-being. When we eat nourishing, whole foods, we're not just taking care of our bodies, we're also nurturing our minds. During times of depression, eating can feel like an insurmountable task. The lack of appetite, the fatigue, and the sense of disconnection from your body can make mealtimes feel like a chore. But even small changes to your diet can have a big impact on how you feel. I often recommend starting with small, manageable changes. Instead of thinking about an entire overhaul, focus on one area, perhaps incorporating more fruits and vegetables into your diet or drinking more water. If cooking feels like too much, consider adding a nutrient-dense smoothie or a salad to your day. The goal isn't perfection. It's about nurturing your body and mind with what it needs to function at its best. One patient I worked with had been struggling with depression for years, and her diet was largely made up of processed foods and sugary snacks. We began by replacing just one of her meals with something more whole and nutritious. A hearty vegetable soup, a grain bowl with lean protein, or a simple salad with a variety of colorful veggies. Over time, these small changes made a noticeable difference. She reported feeling more energized and clearer-headed. I didn't realize how much my diet was affecting me until I started changing it, she said. Another patient, a man who had long battled depression and anxiety, struggled with eating regularly. We started with the practice of setting small, consistent meal times. At first, just having breakfast each morning, whether it was a piece of fruit, yogurt, or a handful of nuts, was a huge step forward. Gradually, he added more balanced meals to his day, and with each small step, he felt more grounded and less overwhelmed. Nutrition doesn't mean depriving yourself of things you enjoy. It's about balance. When you nourish your body with whole, wholesome foods, you're creating a foundation for emotional resilience. Foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids, like salmon and walnuts, can help support brain health. Complex carbohydrates, found in whole grains and vegetables, can stabilize blood sugar and improve mood. Probiotic-rich foods like yogurt or fermented vegetables can support gut health, which, in turn, can impact your mental health. So today, think about one small change you can make in your diet. Maybe it's adding a fruit to your breakfast, drinking more water, or swapping out a sugary snack for a handful of nuts. The idea is not to overwhelm yourself, but to gently nurture your body and mind with the fuel it needs. Because your body and mind are deeply connected. By nourishing one, you nourish the other. And you deserve to feel both physically and emotionally supported. In the midst of depression, emotions often feel like a tangled mess, impossible to untangle or understand. One minute, you might feel overwhelmed with sadness, and the next, you're filled with frustration or confusion. It's as if your mind is running on a loop, but it's difficult to make sense of what's going on inside. This is where journaling can become a powerful tool for clarity. As a psychologist, I have seen how journaling provides a safe, private space for people to express their emotions, without judgment, without the need to make sense of everything right away. Writing allows us to slow down and process our thoughts. It helps us move from the chaos of feeling to the calm of reflection. And in doing so, it creates an opportunity to understand ourselves more deeply. Journaling doesn't have to be a lengthy process, nor does it require any particular writing skills. It's about getting the words onto the page, however imperfectly, that reflect what's going on in your mind. The beauty of journaling is that it gives you permission to express whatever is there, without the need to filter or censor yourself. One patient, a young woman struggling with anxiety and depression, found great relief in journaling. She would write for just 10 minutes each morning, pouring out whatever was on her mind. At first, it was disjointed thoughts, a jumble of worries and self-doubt. But over time, her writing became more focused. She began to notice patterns, certain triggers that worsened her mood or thoughts that kept recurring. The act of writing didn't erase her pain, but it gave her clarity. It helped her see that her emotions were valid, but they didn't have to define her. Another patient, a man dealing with grief, found solace in journaling about his memories. Instead of pushing his emotions away, he began to write letters to his lost loved one. It wasn't a way of fixing his grief, but a way of giving it a space to exist. Through this process, he found that his emotions could coexist with healing. They didn't have to be either/or. When you journal, you're not just writing about your feelings, you're engaging in a dialogue with yourself. You're asking, what's going on right now? What do I need? How do I feel? And by giving voice to your inner world, you create a path to understanding, self-compassion, and eventually, healing. If you're not sure where to start, try these prompts. How am I feeling today, and why? What is one thing I can do today to care for myself? What thoughts or beliefs are weighing on me right now? What is something I can be grateful for, no matter how small? You don't have to worry about structure or grammar. The goal is to let the words flow, allowing yourself to uncover what lies beneath the surface. Journaling is a practice, not a performance. So today, consider picking up a pen and writing. Even if it's just for 5 minutes. Write whatever comes to mind. Let your thoughts flow without judgment. Because in that space, you'll begin to find clarity, and in that clarity, healing begins. When you're navigating depression, the idea of moving your body, of exercising, can feel like an insurmountable task. The thought of getting up, of being active, can seem distant and almost impossible. But what I've witnessed time and time again in my practice is the profound impact that even the smallest amounts of physical activity can have on mental well-being. Depression often creates a sense of inertia, a feeling of being stuck in both mind and body. One of the most effective ways to break through this stagnation is by engaging in movement. Physical activity, whether it's a walk around the block, stretching, yoga, or more intense exercise, has been shown to release endorphins, the body's natural mood elevators. It's not just about physical health, it's about activating the body's natural ability to heal the mind. The benefits of physical activity for mental health are far-reaching. Regular movement improves sleep, reduces anxiety, boosts self-esteem, and helps regulate mood. But perhaps most importantly, it offers a break from the relentless thoughts that depression brings. It allows you to focus on the present moment and on what your body is doing, rather than the endless cycle of negative thinking. One patient, a woman in her 30s who had been struggling with depression for years, began taking short walks each day. At first, it was a challenge. She had no energy, and her mind kept telling her to stay in bed. But she started small, just a 5-minute walk to the end of the block. Over time, she gradually increased the duration and distance. Within weeks, she began to notice a shift in her mood. She felt less fatigued, more focused, and less trapped by her thoughts. I didn't expect it to help so much, she said. But getting outside, moving, even for just a few minutes, it made a difference. Another patient, a man who had long battled depression and anxiety, found solace in yoga. He started with gentle stretching and breathing exercises, focusing on the present moment and the sensations in his body. Gradually, yoga became a form of self-care and a way to quiet his mind. When I'm on the mat, everything else fades away, he shared. It's just me and my breath. It's like I can finally let go of everything. You don't need to sign up for a marathon or commit to intense exercise routines. The key is to start where you are. Even small, manageable amounts of movement can create momentum and help you reconnect with your body. Whether it's stretching, dancing to your favorite song, walking your dog, or practicing yoga, movement is a tool for healing that you can use at your own pace. So today, think about one way you can move your body, no matter how small. Could you take a short walk? Try a few stretches? Maybe you can even dance around your living room for a few minutes. It's not about perfection. It's about starting where you are and honoring your body's needs. Because movement, in whatever form it takes, is an act of self-care. And when you move, you are reminding your body and mind that you are still alive, still moving forward, and still capable of healing. As we come to the final part of this journey, it's time to talk about something deeply important: the role of compassion and patience in healing from depression. So much of the struggle with depression is not only about managing the condition itself, but about how we treat ourselves during the process. We are often our harshest critics, holding ourselves to impossible standards and feeling guilt or shame for not getting better faster. In my years of working with individuals who have experienced depression, I've seen firsthand how important it is to cultivate compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves. Healing takes time. Progress is rarely linear. Some days will feel like steps forward, while others might feel like setbacks. And that's okay. It's all part of the process. One of the most difficult aspects of depression is the pressure to snap out of it. There's a societal expectation that we should be able to overcome difficult emotions quickly, or that our pain should be fixed. But healing is not something that happens on a timeline. It's not something that can be rushed. It's a journey, and sometimes it's messy, slow, and filled with uncertainty. What I often tell my patients is this: healing is a process, not a race. It's about showing up for yourself, day after day, even when it feels hard. It's about extending kindness to yourself when you feel stuck or when things aren't going as planned. It's about acknowledging that you are doing the best you can with what you have at any given moment. Compassion is a practice. It's not just about being kind to yourself on good days, but also on the days when everything feels too much. It's about saying, I am enough, even if I'm struggling. I am worthy of love, even when I don't feel like it. Patience is also essential. Healing takes time, and there will be days when it feels like nothing is changing. But remember, even small shifts are progress. When we embrace patience, we give ourselves the grace to move at our own pace, without rushing the process. Patience allows us to honor our experience and trust that things will shift, even when we can't see the full picture yet. I once worked with a patient who had been in a deep depression for years. She felt like she was never going to get better and often felt defeated by her lack of progress. Over time, we worked on replacing her self-criticism with self-compassion. Rather than beating herself up for not being where she wanted to be, she learned to celebrate the small victories: the days she got out of bed, the moments when she smiled, the times she reached out to a friend. Slowly but surely, she began to notice the positive changes that had been quietly accumulating. Healing from depression is not a destination. It's a journey, and every step, no matter how small, counts. Your journey will look different from someone else's, and that's okay. The important thing is that you continue showing up for yourself with kindness and patience, even when it feels like progress is slow. So today, ask yourself, how can I be more compassionate toward myself? What small act of kindness can I offer to myself today, even if it's just allowing myself to rest or letting go of unrealistic expectations? You are worthy of love, patience, and care. Healing takes time, and you are allowed to move at your own pace. So be gentle with yourself, and remember, you're already doing the most important work, showing up. As we come to the end of this series, I want to leave you with a thought. Healing is not a straight path. It's not about being perfect, nor is it about always feeling good. It's about showing up for yourself, day in and day out, with the intention of caring for your body, mind, and soul. Every small step you take, every habit you cultivate, and every moment you choose to be kind to yourself is progress. Depression can feel isolating, and it can make the world seem like a much darker place. But I want you to remember this: you are not alone, and you are not broken. Healing takes time, and that's okay. The journey you're on, as challenging as it may feel, is one that will eventually lead you to a place of peace, understanding, and hope. You deserve the chance to feel better, to reconnect with the joy and peace that you may have lost. And while it may take time, know that the work you're doing now, taking small steps, building healthy habits, and being compassionate with yourself, is the foundation of that healing. If you're feeling stuck, remember that it's okay to reach out for help. It's okay to seek guidance, to lean on others, and to take things at your own pace. You don't have to do this alone. And if you found value in the words shared here today, I encourage you to join me on this ongoing journey of growth and healing. Subscribe to this channel so that we can continue to explore deeper insights into mental health, self-care, and living a fulfilling life. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel, you're committing to your own well-being. Together, we can create a community where you are seen, heard, and supported every step of the way. Take a moment today to celebrate yourself for everything you're doing to heal. Because you are worth it, and you are capable of creating a life full of peace, hope, and purpose. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. You're not alone in this journey, and there is always light ahead.